This is the original podcast edition of The Guild of the Cowry Catchers by Abigail Hilton, now part of the complete Pirates of Wefravain series. The books are available as audiobooks, ebooks, and paperbacks. This podcast originally aired from 2010 to 2014. Stick around after the story for commentary from me, the author, more than a decade later. The Guild of the Cowry Catchers, a novel of pirates in Panamindorah. Written and narrated by Abigail Hilton. Book 4, Out of the Ashes. Warning: this novel was intended for people who shop in the grown-up section of the bookstore. If you need to ask whether you will be offended, you probably will. Episode 2. Chapter 4. A New Argument.
Masia Minor is more than a source of entertainment for the nobility of Wefravain. It is a rite of passage. Here, young princes kill their first shelts in open combat before facing pirates on their own shores or participating in skirmishes with other islands. There may come a day when Grishnards no longer feel that they need Masia Minor, when they are so secure in their dominance and so comfortable with their neighbors that they no longer wish to be reminded of their violent past. Gwaine, the non-Grishnards of Wefravain.
Moments later, 2 Pegasus landed on deck. The riders were a Gazumel and a Zed that neither Gerard nor Silvio recognized. Marlowe had gone below deck, but he soon emerged with Gwaine, Mink, Serwin, and the rest of the ship's officers. The Pegasus and their riders went straight to Gwaine. The riders bowed, and the Pegasus inclined their heads. Gwaine looked confused, but he smiled anyway.
Corin, Myrta, Ash, Janal, it's a surprise to see you here.
The guests looked uncomfortable.
We realize that.
Gerard saw that the main spokesperson was not one of the fawns, but one of the Pegasus, a medium-sized stallion with striking white feathers.
We've been sent as representatives of the shelts and animals of Masia Minor.
The Pegasus spoke flatly, without looking Gwaine full in the face. Gerard got the idea that they'd quarreled at some point in the past.
They'd like you to come back and talk.
Gwaine stared at him.
Corin, you came all the way to the Lawless Lands and hunted down the Defiants to ask me to come home for dinner?
The Guild of the Cowry Catchers
is dead,
interrupted Gwaine, and Gerard heard real bitterness in his voice for the first time.
Everything connected with it is broken, and I'm not interested in trying to resurrect it. Serengale said she'd kill me if I stepped foot on Masia Minor again, and I believe her. I kind of agree with her, actually. I tried something and it didn't work, and now I'm going to do something else.
The Pegasus drew a deep breath. His ears had settled back against his skull. The Gazumel spoke up, a girl of perhaps 18.
Gwaine, they're going to kill us.
He frowned.
Who?
Your uncle,
said the white Pegasus.
The new king, Hesserad Masia, has received an injunction from the gods to crack down on piracy around Masia Minor. They're telling us that every sentient creature on the island has to come to the lodges. We're to be sold as slaves. If we don't come, we're to be slaughtered in 2 red months. They're going to scour the island and populate it with Grishnards. We're told that they're already planning towns and ports. The king has decided he'll get more money out of the island by selling the land than by keeping it as a hunting park.
Gwaine passed a hand across his forehead.
My uncle never was much for tradition. I'm sorry. I don't know what you expect me to do.
The Pegasus stamped his foot in a sharp crack against the deck.
We expect you to help. We feel that you are partially responsible for this mess.
Gerard was glad that the newcomers either hadn't noticed him and Silvio, or hadn't recognized them. Gwain's ears settled back.
Wefravane is a cruel place, and that's not my fault. I tried to fix it. I couldn't. If my efforts made things worse, I apologize. I think everyone will be better off if I don't stick my nose in anymore.
Gwain,
Said the girl more quietly.
they just want you to talk to everyone. They're scared. They're arguing. They can't agree on what to do. You're the only person who ever managed to make them work together.
Gwain hesitated. The ocelot spoke from near his feet.
You can't really be considering this, sir.
When Gwain said nothing, a storm of discussion erupted among the ship's officers. Mink sighed.
Friends, let's discuss this below decks.
Many of the sailors had quietly found some excuse to be nearby. Marlowe was talking to Gwain. Gerard wasn't sure whether he and Silvio were supposed to follow the officers or not. Serwyn solved the dilemma by stopping to scowl at them.
Do not think that this means you're welcome or forgotten. As far as I'm concerned, this only makes your position more tenuous. Go to your cabin and stay there until you're told to do otherwise. If I find you poking about, I will consider it willful insubordination and act accordingly.
Does that mean we're being sent to bed without supper?
Dakar was asleep when they returned to their cabin. Gerard quietly got out another hammock and strung it.
You can put up too.
Why?
Silvio picked at his tail.
I don't want to embarrass you.
Silvio, you know I'm a lousy liar.
He hung the largest of the hammocks across the room from Dakar. There was bedding to go with it. Gerard hadn't slept in anything so lavish since Dakar's dispensary aboard the Mantis. Silvio was half on top of him, but that was how they slept most of the time anyway. Gerard ran a hand through Silvio's fur. It had finally dried from their bath.
Silvio, you are the softest thing in the world.
He held his fingers up to his face in the dim light.
And coming out in handfuls.
Silvio giggled under his chin.
Wanna brush me?
Is this your winter coat?
Silvio nodded. He snuffled around Gerard's ears and shoulders and chin. It tickled.
You smell clean.
I'm sure I do. I won't even ask what I smelled like before.
Silvio settled back down.
You always smell nice to me. Soap smells nice too, though.
They were quiet for a while. Finally, Silvio said,
What are you thinking? Something about Thess, I can tell.
Gerard shut his eyes. He didn't want to cry again.
I was so afraid that she was scared at the end, that she died lonely and frightened and abandoned. But she didn't. She was happy, Silvio. She'd written something splendid, and she could see. And she was happy.
Chapter 5. A Third Ship.
Lemurs have odd ideas about clothing. Most of them consider clothing immodest because it leaves much of the body to the imagination, generally considered more interesting than reality. Gwain, the non-Grishnards of Wefravane.
Gerard woke the next morning to the sound of someone hammering on his cabin door. He sat up, disoriented, and almost flipped the hammock. Silvio grabbed at him in a half-asleep panic. Their center of gravity shifted again, and they both ended up on the floor. Silvio groaned.
I remember why I always preferred beds.
Did I hurt you?
Asked Gerard. He'd landed half on top. Silvio shook his head.
Just a little bruised.
Another bang on the door. A voice shouted,
Gerard, Silvio, you're wanted.
Silvio stood and brushed himself off.
Well, fancy that. Last night they couldn't wait to be rid of us.
A dark, tousled head rose out of the hammock across the room.
What's going on?
Asked Dakar. Gerard saw from the port window that it was almost dawn.
I don't know.
He went to the door and opened it. Marlowe was standing there, looking tired and distracted. He was wearing the same clothes he'd been in yesterday evening.
You'll never guess what turned up in the harbor mouth this morning.
I probably won't.
Get dressed and come see. Gwain wants to talk to you.
Moments later, they all stood on the main deck. Dakar was fascinated by the lemurs and had already started a conversation with one. Gerard and Silvio stared towards the mouth of the harbor. A ship was anchored squarely in the center. An odd place to anchor, since it wasn't fully protected from the elements and was too far to comfortably send a rowboat to town. Gerard blinked hard in the thin dawn light.
Wyverns and waterspouts. That's all we need.
It was the Dark Wind. A knot of officers were muttering on the quarterdeck of the Defiance. Gerard saw Gawain, Mink, Serwyn, and several of the officers from last night, as well as the delegation from the Water Sprite, which was anchored nearby. Gawain came down to join Gerard and Silvio on the main deck. He was also wearing clothes from the night before, and looked tired and unhappy. He gestured toward the ship in the mouth of the harbor.
Apparently she was chasing the Water Sprite 2 days ago, but they thought they'd lost her.
He shot an annoyed look at the quarterdeck.
Who's in command over there?
Asked Silvio.
I never did pick another lieutenant after Basil left. I kept putting it off. Who's in charge of the Sea Watch these days anyway? Arundel?
Gawain listened to Gerard relay Silvio's questions. He shook his head.
Last I knew, Arundel went back to the police. There's someone else over the Sea Watch, someone I had never heard of. Nern. Lyali Nern was the name I heard, and I'm pretty sure he's a Grishnard. I think he kept Farrell as a lieutenant, but he's appointed a couple of others that I'd never heard of either. Schultz from outside the Sea Watch. He brought in a lot of new blood and added 3 new ships. I don't know which he's using as his flagship.
3?
Gerard was impressed. Gawain nodded.
And planning more. The priestess seems to be feeling a lot less playful these days. My father isn't the only one who's left for the Pendulons in the last year.
Gerard went to the railing and looked critically at the Dark Wind. She had always been the largest of the temple ships. She wasn't fast or maneuverable, but she could carry a large complement and exact a heavy toll when boarding. Even at her slow speed, it would be difficult to pass her in the harbor mouth.
How many fighters are on the Water Sprite?
Maybe 40. We've only got about 30 real fighters aboard the Defiance, even though it's a bigger ship. Lemurs are good sailors, but they're not much use against Grishnards.
Silvio frowned.
The Dark Wind will have at least 100, perhaps double that if they were planning on a heavy boarding.
Gawain rested his arms on the rail.
We can play the waiting game. Zorn's harbor masters will attempt to enforce peace within their port. The city would probably see an attack on a ship in its harbor as a personal threat and side with us. Between 2 ships and the city authorities, I think we'd win. On the other hand, waiting may allow 1 or more other temple ships to join the Dark Wind. Schultz from the Water Sprite saw the Fang on their way here. 2 well-crewed temple ships could overwhelm the port if they decided to sack it. Zorn is full of fawns, a species they treat as a food source. Under these circumstances, I think the port authorities would likely hand us over without a struggle. They certainly wouldn't want to get involved in a fight between 2 factions from Wefervain. If they knew exactly what was happening right now, they'd probably kick us out.
Silvio nodded.
Your best bet is to approach the harbor mouth, 1 ship on each side. If the Dark Wind makes a mistake, you might be able to outmaneuver her. Barring extremely poor luck with wind, you can certainly outrun her in open water. If she does manage to close with 1 ship, the other can come to the rescue.
They all considered this. The wind was presently blowing towards the mouth of the harbor, which gave them the weather gauge. While they were considering, Tzu came up and said to Gawain,
I'm told we're wanted below.
Gawain smiled.
If you 2 want to come, I think you'll find this interesting.
He started towards the stairs.
Silvio says you have pretty hair,
Commented Gerard, and felt himself go a little red.
Thank you. It's a fire dancer thing. Tradition says we don't cut it. It's a silly tradition, but I guess we all do a few silly things.
Gerard smiled.
He says tradition doesn't seem to affect the color.
My old teachers wouldn't have been thrilled with that either, but, you know, blue. Only a shavior could have blue hair, and it's not very healthy to be a shavior in most parts of Wefervain.
Silvio says it's not very healthy to be you in most parts of Wefervain.
True, very true. But it is healthy to be me in the water. And you're about to see why.
They'd reached the lowest level of the ship. A lemur was standing there with a lantern in its paw-like hand. It wore hoop earrings, a little hat with a single green feather, and nothing else. It looked at them with its enormous orange eyes and said, in a lilting voice,
"Someone to talk to you, sir."
The hold was full of boxes and supplies, but Gerard saw that the center contained something like a well. A portal cover had been removed from it, and a creature was resting both arms on the side. It had a round, chubby face, with smooth gray hair, almost like fur, on its head. Its pointy ears were fleshy and hairless. The eyes were larger than a land shelt's, dark, wet, and soulful. Its hands were webbed.
Is it a Selkie?
Gawain shook his head.
Cowry catcher. They look a lot like Selkies from the waist up.
I thought they couldn't speak.
Gawain grinned.
Oh, they speak. Just not so we can hear them. Fortunately, I have a translator.
Sue trotted up to the well. She appeared to be having a conversation with the creature, although Gerard could hear nothing.
Good gods,
murmured Silvio.
They'd make perfect spies.
Cowry catchers speak in a range higher than our ears can detect. But bats and bat-like creatures can hear them. Cowry catchers can hear us, of course, and they understand us just fine.
Every harbor, every port and every town of Wefravain, they all have cowry catchers to scrape the hulls and make repairs.
Gawain grinned.
They're quiet and slow and presumed stupid. They hear all kinds of things. And they tell me.
The Guild of the Cowry Catchers.
Gawain nodded.
I probably shouldn't have called it that.
Arrogant,
muttered Silvio.
But I didn't think anyone would understand. I liked the irony, and resistance workers liked it. You need a legend.
Well, that's true.
I don't ask much of them. No assassinations or fighting, or even dragging fire ships. I don't want to call attention to them. They're gentle creatures. Not nearly as feisty as Selkies. The Defiance has a space for them built into the hull, and a double airlock for them to come up here in the hold and speak to us. They don't swim as fast as Selkies. They could never keep up with the ship.
Gerard thought of something.
How did you rescue that Selkie at the festival?
Flew him out.
Silvio frowned.
Your wolf isn't big enough to...
There was a winged carriage up near the palace. Those things always have balloons on the back with light gas from Masia. The stuff we use to float the airships.
Ah, so the balloon gave enough extra lift for Zoo to fly him to the water. Clever.
Gawain shook his head.
You haven't seen clever until you see what these creatures can do.
He nodded at the cowry catcher.
I would have said yesterday I was well quit of all that. But at the rate things are going...
Zoo came back over to them.
He says there are wyverns in the water around the Dark Wind. He saw 3. He didn't want to get too close.
How big?
Big. Adults.
Do wyverns often follow temple ships?
Gawain nodded.
Yes, but just because they're around doesn't mean they'll interfere. I've seen them pluck wounded out of the water, but they won't fight without a really compelling reason. I think it's partially that they just like to retain their mystery. They don't want Shelts getting used to the sight of them. They want to inspire terror every time they make an appearance.
Lazy,
summarized Silvio.
Gawain, does the water sprite still have that secret room in its hold?
Gawain listened to Gerard. He nodded. Silvio was starting to pace.
I have an idea. A way we could get out of the harbor. If it works, we won't have to fight the Dark Wind. I don't think our odds are good in a fight.
A trick?
Silvio grinned.
Of course.
Chapter 6. A trick within a trick.
Lemurs have no Shelts. In their native jungle, they have no mounts or four-legged companions. They are nervous around beasts, especially griffins, who hunt them in the wild. Gawain, the non-Grishnards of Wefravain.
Gawain liked Silvio's plan immediately. It was clever. It was also bold and risky. He went upstairs to talk to the officers, and they proceeded to argue about it for a precious quarter watch. Gerard was beginning to see the advantages of an autocratic ship.
If it were me,
grumbled Silvio,
a few of those officers would be scrubbing the deck with the ship's boys.
After you said some humiliating things to them in front of their peers?
Silvio grinned.
Yes, after that, there'd be none of this discussion.
He said the word as though it needed a bath.
It's not your ship, though.
I know, I'm not interfering, I'm just saying.
Gawain told them that the debate involved Silvio as the source of the idea. Some of the officers didn't trust him. However, of all possible plans, Silvio's seemed most likely to allow them to escape with the least damage and loss of life. Gerard realized that the debate was becoming a confidence test.
If this works, they'll accept us.
Silvio's plan required some preparation, and then everyone not on watch was ordered to lie down for a nap. Mostly, Gerard suspected, because the officers had been up arguing all night. While everyone was arguing and resting, Gerard got himself a much-needed haircut, and Silvio found himself 2 more throwing knives and a sword that fit him reasonably well, courtesy of a generous lemur. Gerard also talked to Dakar again about shifting. If things went as planned, she wouldn't be in any fighting today, but he still wanted to make sure she understood.
Only to save your life, Dakar. You don't shift for any other reason, understand?
She nodded.
There are wyverns in the water. Gawain's Cowry catchers saw them. We don't want them to see you for what you are.
Gerard also talked to Felbane.
I need you to let me ride you today. You might have to carry other shelts, too, maybe lemurs. Can you do that?
Felbane considered.
Eat one?
He asked hopefully.
No, not a single one.
Felbane looked disappointed, but he nodded. By mid-afternoon, Gerard and Felbane were aboard the Water Sprite and headed out of the harbor. They were operating with a skeleton crew led by Serwyn and composed of 7 lemurs, 3 Xavier, and Gerard. Silvio had badly wanted to come, and Gerard thought that he'd been on the verge of losing his temper when he was told he could not.
It's part of the test,
muttered Gerard.
They want us in 2 separate places. They're afraid we're going to help the Darkwind. Just go along with it.
So Silvio and Dakar stayed on the Defiance, which was tacking towards the harbor mouth, some distance to their left, getting steadily further away. The wind had veered into the northwest, which was actually better for their plan. Gerard watched the lemurs scurry about in the rigging as he hauled on a rope. Every few minutes, someone would leave their station, go below deck, and re-emerge a few seconds later, an attempt to give the illusion of a greater number of shelts aboard. Gerard watched the Darkwind as it drew nearer. He could imagine the boatswain shouting for extra hands to remain below deck until they were needed, the tense sailors fidgeting with their weapons, not knowing which way they would need to jump as the 2 ships sailed towards them. The Water Sprite was smaller. Not small enough to be inconsequential, just small enough to be a more inviting target.
Come on!
Serwyn angled the ship just slightly towards the Darkwind. Gerard nodded approval. Their course shouldn't be enough to arouse suspicion, just enough to make the smaller ship look a little easier to reach than the Defiance. Closer. And now Gerard could see Grishnard standing on the quarterdeck of the Darkwind, and still she made no move. Gerard glanced towards Serwyn.
It's not working. Time to offer sweeter bait.
Apparently Serwyn agreed with him, because an instant later he called an order to the lemurs in the rigging. It was a simple trick. The wind was blowing them toward, or more accurately, across the front of, the Darkwind, and they were tacking to avoid sliding that way. All they had to do was miss stays, a little sloppy sail work, and suddenly their apparent error had them slipping directly towards the enemy ship. Finally, she took the bait. The Darkwind jumped as her sails unfurled. Gerard fancied that they were close enough to hear the grinding of the anchor chain as it came up at speed. He could hear sailors shouting, see them running. The lemurs aboard the Water Sprite were putting up a fair show of panic, leaping about and screaming in their strange voices, running below deck and back up again, swinging about like crazed insects in the rigging.
All right, I'm sure they're convinced we have a whole ship full of panicked lemurs,
shouted Serwyn.
Calm down and get ready for the next step.
Gerard could feel Serwyn watching him. He almost felt sorry for the Leopon.
Everything else to worry about, and he thinks maybe I'm going to desert or betray them.
The Darkwind was closing fast. The Water Sprite didn't have to pretend to try to escape. Even with their very best efforts, there was no way they could avoid an encounter now. Meanwhile, the Darkwind had moved away from the center of the harbor's mouth, and there was plenty of room for the Defiance to escape into open water. Gerard watched her pass the narrowest point of the harbor's mouth just as the Darkwind got within arrow range of the Water Sprite.
Good enough so far.
Below!
Shouted Serwyn as the first arrows clattered on deck. A mad scramble ensued as the excited lemurs all tried to be the first below deck. Serwyn cursed quietly and stood back with Gerard and the Shavier. Gerard glanced over his shoulder at the dark wind, her decks now lined with shelts preparing to board. Already they looked a bit confused at the nearly empty deck in front of them. Gerard strained, trying to get a glimpse of the commander. Most Grishnards would choose the largest ship as their flagship.
Lily Nern, what sort of shelt are you?
And then he saw him on the quarterdeck. Gerard knew the type Morcella liked, and this was it. Glittering in gold and lapis, purple-plumed hat ruffling in the wind.
Well, you found yourself a taller version of Silvio.
Olivar,
growled Serwyn.
Just trying to get a look at the Admiral,
said Gerard, and went below. The 3 lemurs who were supposed to ride Felbane with him were already bickering. They wouldn't get on until Gerard did. Felbane took flight from a nest box that opened on the opposite side of the ship from where the Darkwind was already throwing grappling hooks. The Griffin glided low over the water until they were well away from the 2 ships. The rest of the crew were riding 4 Pegasus, 2 to a mount. They rose as they got further from the ships and circled back, well out of arrow range. Gerard looked down on the confused melee of Grishnards on the empty deck of the Water Sprite. He saw the bobbing purple feather of the Admiral. He could imagine the sailors running below, finding nothing but empty corridors.
Now you'll think I've been tricked. They've sacrificed this ship to ensure an escape.
Of course,
Silvio had said.
We run the risk of them being satisfied with the capture of one ship. It would bring Cowry's into the treasury. If the Darkwind were just a pirate ship, she might be comfortable with that, but she's a temple ship, and she needs prisoners and a body count to satisfy her mistress. I really don't think she'll be content with the empty Water Sprite. She'll leave that ship, probably with a hastily selected skeleton crew, and chase the Defiance. By then, the Defiance will have a good head start. She'll lead the Darkwind away from the harbor mouth, and then the
shelts hidden in the secret room would come out, overpower the surprised Sea-Watch crew, and sail away. If all went as planned, the only fighting would occur at that point. The hidden sailors would have the advantage of surprise, and everyone thought it likely that the Sea-Watch sailors would be a weak group, chosen because they were not needed in a fight with the Defiance. In the unlikely event that the Darkwind did manage to catch the Defiance, she would have fewer fighters to deploy. The plan had one glaring flaw, which Gerard had identified immediately.
What if some of the shelts from the Darkwind remember that secret room? The Darkwind was there, after all, for the business with the spiders.
Silvio had looked unhappy.
That's a possibility, but I think the odds are against it. Basil took nearly all his crew with him when he left. If things have gotten as stirred up as it sounds like since we left, I doubt there could be more than a handful of sailors over there who were present for the spiders. Most of the ones who were in the hold that night, the ones who actually saw the secret room and how it opened, died. I think the odds are in favor of no one either remembering it or knowing enough to identify it.
What about your book? The one with all the pictures and descriptions of resistance ships. Does the new Admiral have it? Did you mention the secret room of the spiders?
Silvio had smiled faintly.
I burned that book not long before they took me away. I was drunk and upset.
Gerard hadn't known what to say. He had a hard time imagining Silvio depressed enough to do such a wasteful thing with a document he'd worked so hard to create. Understandably, Gawain had a very different reaction to the news about the book.
Absolutely inspired. Practically makes you believe in Providence.
And he'd gone out whistling to talk to the officers. Gerard tried not to think about all that as he flew away from the Water Sprite.
I did my part. Now all I have to do is fly back to the Defiance and watch the Darkwind disappear in the distance.
But Gerard couldn't help looking over his shoulder at the shelts on the deck of the Water Sprite. Marlowe was in the secret room, along with the little Gazumel girl from the expedition from Asia Minor, and a host of others he didn't know.
Come on. Cut Lucifer, let me see you leave. Felbane,
he called.
Circle once. Stay well back, just circle.
Felbane turned back towards the Darkwind. In his excitement, he banked a little too steeply, and the lemurs screamed in terror, clinging to the saddle strap, to each other, and to Gerard.
Olivar!
He turned to see the red and blue feathered Pegasus that Serwyn and one of the Shavier were riding. The Shavier had a bow strung.
What are you doing?
I want to see them leave,
shouted Gerard. He felt a little angry, even though he knew Serwyn was only doing his job.
They'll leave. So should we.
The Sea-Watch sailors illustrated his point by beginning to shoot at Felbane and the Pegasus. The lemurs whimpered.
Please, sir. Please, back to the ship. Yes.
Chattered the others.
Please, the ship, please.
Please, the ship. Please, the ship.
Please.
Yes.
The ship, please.
Gerard sighed.
Oh, please.
All right.
They were partway around the Dark Wind now, out of range of all but the most skillful bowshot.
When we get back around, maybe that will be long enough.
The Grishnards from the Dark Wind looked to be leaving. They also seemed to be doing some mild vandalism, smashing up something on deck.
Odd, if this is their prize.
Gerard could see the Admiral's purple-plumed hat as he paced the water sprite. Grappling hooks fell away.
And they're not going to leave a crew?
At last, the Grishnards seemed to be crossing the boarding planks and lines to their own ship. The Admiral came last. He stopped on the deck of the Dark Wind, picked up something, and tossed it onto the deck of the smaller ship. The water sprite erupted in flames. You have been listening to The Guild of the Cowry Catchers by Abigail Hilton. Copyright Abigail Hilton. Cowry Catchers is an illustrated story with ink and watercolor artwork by Sarah Cloutier. You can view the sketch art for free on the website at cowrycatchers.com, and the episode covers provide a sneak peek at the finished artwork. If you'd like to view the complete illustrations and support the podcast, the ebook is for sale on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Smashwords, Kobo, and most other ebook platforms. As of this recording, it costs $5. A big thank you in advance to those who purchase the book or review it. This podcast included the vocal talents of
Nathan Lowell
as Gerard,
Norm Sherman,
as Silvio,
Chris Lester,
as Gwaine,
Hughes Hilton,
as Marlowe,
R.E. Chambliss,
as Dakar,
Tim Dodge,
as Felbane,
Brian Lincoln,
as Serwin,
Veronica Jaguar,
as Mink,
Jim Keeling,
as Corin,
Philippa Valentine,
as Myrta,
Big Incubus,
as a lemur. Sound effects for this podcast were provided by SoundSnap, the Free Sound Project, and Sound Dogs. The intro music for this podcast was Grace by Beth Quist. The outro music is The River Between by Jamie Saber. Both were licensed with permission from Magnatune.net. Music for Book 4 of Cowry Catchers included selections from Digital Juice at digitaljuice.com and Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. It also included additional music from Beth Quist, Diana Rowan, and Jamie Saber, all from Magnatune.net. All music was licensed and used according to the terms of the websites.
This is a standard copyright now. This podcast is provided for your personal enjoyment only. You can download and archive the episodes for your personal use. You may not re-upload, mirror, or publicly redistribute the audio files, nor can you alter, remix, or create derivative works.
And I'm back. This is 2026 Abby, coming to you with a few thoughts on the episode. So I had forgotten before I listened to this that I went and found actual lemur screaming, which is a very strange sound, almost like a rubber band twanging or something. And at first I thought it was an error, like I had let some horrible background noise creep into the audio, and then I was like, oh, that's right, that is overly realistic lemur screaming. Points to you, dear listener, if you immediately realized it was lemur screaming. Obviously, we are in the middle of an action sequence. You don't know what's going to happen next. I still like the trick that I devised for our characters to play on their antagonists, and the twist that the antagonist pulls in return. I also like the fact that I keep folding in pieces of things that happened
while Gerard was out of the loop, things that Silvio could have told him, like the fact that he burned all of his notes before he got taken away, but that Silvio wouldn't think to tell him. And also, Silvio has been not himself and not thinking about any of his old life. So, even though they are back in intimate contact, there's still this period of time when Gerard was gone and when things were happening, and Silvio has not relayed all of those things. Much of it because he just didn't think to, but there are a few bear traps lurking there. Again, the illustrations to these books are no longer available in the ebooks. I know I say that elsewhere, but just to remind people, the outro that was originally recorded for this episode is not correct. To get the illustrations, you can come and get them for free from me on my Patreon, or you can get a few extra, and all of them arranged very beautifully in the Cowry Catchers art book. I think it's actually called The Art of Cowry Catchers. It's available as an ebook, as a PDF, as a signed paperback or hardback from me, or as a unsigned paperback or hardback from Amazon. All right, I hope you're enjoying this action sequence. I'll see you in the next episode. This is Abigail Hilton, and you have been listening to the Pirates of Wefravain saga. Join me on Patreon for early episodes, long-form interviews, forum access, personal updates, and lots of artwork, including maps and species charts. That's patreon.com/Abigail Hilton. If you want the whole story now with no interruptions and some remastering of the early books for sound quality, you can find the entire series at shop.abigailhilton.com, along with all my other novels. The audiobooks are delivered by BookFunnel. Background music was Hidden Sky by Jamie Sieber, licensed from Magnatune.net circa 2014. The Guild of the Cowry Catchers podcast is an audio adaptation of the Pirates of Wefravain saga, written and produced by Abigail Hilton. Original production copyright 2010, all rights are reserved to the author.